Alien bodies in Congress, ancient skulls, and secret Vatican vaults. What if the truth about aliens has been right in front of us? For the first time in 50 years, the words non-human biologics echoed inside the US Congress, and they didn't come from a movie script. In 2023, the US Congress officially held a hearing where the existence of aliens wasn't just hinted at, it was spoken outright. Under oath, former intelligence officer David Grush stated that the US government has retrieved non-human biologics from crash sites. Not theories, not speculation. Biologics, bodies. He didn't flinch when questioned, and the room didn't laugh. What made this hearing even more explosive was what followed just weeks later. Two strange, mummified bodies were displayed in front of Mexican Congress. Small, brittle, and undeniably odd, the figures had 3 fingers on each hand, long limbs, and oversized skulls. X-rays showed eggs inside one of them. They looked like what the world calls aliens. Scientists were split, some called them hoaxes, others pointed to carbon dating, which placed them at over 1,000 years old. The timing? Too perfect to ignore. One government after another suddenly lifting the curtain. Together, the testimony in Washington and the mummies in Mexico painted a chilling picture. Maybe the truth was never out there. It's been here all along. Hidden in vaults, examined in labs, and now slowly entering public view. And the biggest question remains, why now? Why reveal all this now after decades of silence? In the early 2000s, a man hiking in the Rhodope Mountains of Bulgaria stumbled across a skull like nothing he'd ever seen. It had 6 cavities, no mouth, and was far smaller and lighter than any known human or animal. The eyes, huge and round, dominating most of the face, local archaeologists couldn't identify it. No creature in their records came close. Some suggested it might belong to an undiscovered species or even an ancient deformity, but others quietly entertained another possibility. That it wasn't from Earth at all. What fueled the mystery even more was what was found with it. A small metallic object, shaped like a disc. No one could explain its purpose. The skull was eventually taken for further research and then vanished. It hasn't been seen since. Some say it was hidden, others think it was stolen. To this day, scientists argue about whether the skull was organic, synthetic, or something in between. And if it really came from space, then why was it buried deep in an ancient mountain range thousands of miles from any known crash site? Thousands of miles away in Utah's desert, stories of otherworldly visitors are carved directly into stone. The petroglyphs of Sego Canyon go back at least 8,000 years, and they show something deeply unsettling. Tall, thin beings with no arms, giant eyes, and heads far too large for their bodies. Some have antenna-like projections, others seem to float. Local tribes never claim to have made them. In fact, many Native American oral traditions speak of sky people or star beings that came from above. The match is chilling. What's strange is that these carvings aren't isolated. Similar figures appear all across the American Southwest and beyond, in caves, on cliffs, in places people weren't supposed to live. They didn't hunt these figures and they didn't worship them. It's as if they were trying to record something they'd seen. The Sego Canyon petroglyphs have been studied for years, and no one has been able to explain them away as ordinary humans or animals. When the drawings are this old, this consistent, and this alien-looking, it's hard not to ask, who were they really trying to show us? In the hills of Jalisco, Mexico, farmers and diggers began unearthing hundreds of clay artifacts that defied every rule of ancient art. These weren't typical statues of gods, animals, or humans. They looked like something else entirely. Long-limbed, bug-eyed creatures holding tools, standing next to craft-like objects, or interacting with human figures. Many of the artifacts show what appears to be space helmets, control panels, even surgeries. Some figurines are so detailed, they show large heads with almond-shaped eyes and fingers longer than any humans. They've been dubbed the Jalisco aliens, and while mainstream archaeologists often avoid them, the collection has grown too large to ignore. The figurines were dated to over 1,000 years ago, long before electricity, aviation, or even telescopes. Yet they feature beings that look strikingly like modern interpretations of extraterrestrials. The question is, how could a civilization with no concept of outer space imagine these figures so precisely? Skeptics say they're fakes, but the sheer volume and consistency raise doubts. They weren't sold to tourists. They were buried deep, found far from trade routes, and often alongside standard relics. Were these just myths shaped in clay? Or did these ancient people actually witness something that left them trying to recreate what they saw, with their own hands. Deep in a Peruvian cave near Cusco, researchers stumbled upon something that looked like it came from a science fiction set, a severed, mummified hand with only 3 fingers. But these weren't just any fingers. They were long, bony, and far thicker than a human's, with strange joint structures and cartilage patterns not found in known species. Alongside the hand were elongated skull fragments and an oddly shaped skull cap. Local legends had always spoken of sky visitors who walked differently and didn't look human. This find seemed to echo those stories. When X-rays of the hand were made public, things got weirder. The bones were real. The tissue was real. It wasn't plastic or molded clay. It had veins and joint sockets. Some independent labs even dated it back over 1,000 years. But the anatomy didn't match humans, monkeys, or any known animal from the region. Some researchers claimed it belonged to an unknown primate. Others refused to speculate. Despite the mystery, the specimen was quietly taken into private hands for further study and has rarely been seen since. It raises a disturbing possibility. What if this isn't the only one? What if ancient Peruvians really did have contact with beings whose biology was close, but not quite human? In the ruins of Palenque, Mexico, inside the tomb of the ancient Mayan king Pacal, lies one of the most controversial carvings ever found. On the stone sarcophagus lid is a detailed scene that, to many, looks nothing like a religious or ceremonial image. It looks like someone piloting a machine. Pacal is shown lying back, his hands working controls, his feet pressing against pedals, surrounded by strange objects that resemble tubing, fire, and even exhaust. Some say it looks like he's strapped into a rocket. Mainstream archaeologists insist it's symbolic, a depiction of the king descending into the underworld. But even decades later, no one has fully decoded every symbol carved into the panel. The shape of the structure, the positioning of the body, and the presence of what appear to be mechanical parts don't help the conventional explanations. Supporters of the ancient astronaut theory believe this isn't a myth, it's a memory. That the carving represents a real being, possibly not even human, operating something far ahead of its time. The Mayans were master astronomers. They built observatories, tracked planets, and aligned temples with starlight. So, what if this carving wasn't just ceremonial? What if it was their way of preserving what they saw? Technology from above, etched forever in stone. For years, rumors have swirled about what's locked inside the Vatican's highly restricted archives. One of the most shocking claims? That an ancient manuscript, hidden for centuries, contains sketches of beings that don't look remotely human. One leaked image shows pages filled with faded script, beside it a strange drawing of a large-headed, thin-limbed figure with almond-shaped eyes. It's the classic gray alien, drawn in ink, on what looks like a centuries-old page. No one has officially confirmed the document's authenticity, the Vatican hasn't commented. But the detail of the sketch is uncanny, especially considering its supposed age. The idea that someone hundreds of years ago could have drawn something so close to modern alien reports raises serious questions. Did they make it up? Or did they see something? Some theorists believe these texts were part of a private collection, records of knowledge the church didn't want widely known. Others think the being was real, encountered during a time of exploration, and carefully documented before being locked away. Whether the manuscript is a hoax, a warning, or a clue, it fuels the belief that the Vatican may know far more about visitors from beyond than it's willing to say. Long before the great empires of Babylon and Sumer, a lesser-known culture called the Ubaid thrived in Mesopotamia over 7,000 years ago. When archaeologists uncovered burial sites in Al-Ubaid, what they found didn't look like ancient humans or gods. They found lizard-headed figurines, dozens of them, long faces, slanted eyes, and scaled skin. Some even held babies, wore helmets, or sat in positions of power. They weren't monstrous or symbolic. They were portrayed like leaders or caretakers. What's strange is that these weren't ceremonial gods, and there's no myth explaining them. The figurines came from everyday settlements mixed with tools and domestic items. Why would an ancient people create such detailed models of reptilian beings, unless they believed they were real? The lizardmen theories exploded from there. Some say they were reptilian aliens, possibly the same type mentioned in modern encounters. Others believe they were hybrids, creatures that interacted with early humans or guided them somehow. The truth is, the Ubaid people left no written records behind. Just these figures, staring forward, their gaze frozen in clay. Did they witness something the rest of history buried, or were they trying to warn us about something we'd eventually see again? This strange humanoid figure was reportedly found deep in the mountains of South America, near an isolated cave system rarely explored by researchers. Locals claimed it had been hidden for years, sealed beneath collapsed rock. When it was recovered, the body was sent to a private laboratory for examination. Scientists noted the unusually long limbs, narrow torso, and oversized head, features not consistent with any known human or primate. The tissue was dry but preserved, and internal scans revealed a skeletal structure unlike anything in medical records. No clear explanation was given, and shortly after the study, access to the specimen was restricted. Only a few images remain, sparking questions that no one seems willing to answer. In 2017, researchers in Peru unveiled something so strange it instantly made headlines: small mummified bodies with elongated skulls, 3 long fingers on each hand, and oddly shaped rib cages. Found near the Nazca lines, those massive ancient geoglyphs only visible from the sky, the bodies looked nothing like typical humans. One of them was named Maria, and her structure baffled even experienced scientists. CT scans showed internal organs, bones, and even skin tissue. Carbon dating placed them at around 1,000 years old. Photos and X-rays were made public. Some experts said the bodies were a hoax, pieced together from animal bones. But others, including independent labs in Mexico and Russia, claimed the DNA didn't fully match humans, or any known species. The story refuses to die down. Every test seems to bring more questions than answers. If these beings are real, they change everything we know about life on Earth. Were they visitors, experiments, or an ancient species we never knew existed? The Nazca mummies may be the closest thing the public has seen to real, physical evidence of non-human intelligence, and yet, no one seems able to explain them with certainty. Deep within the restricted archives of the Cairo Museum, rumors speak of a mummy unlike any other. Photos leaked years ago show a small, desiccated body with an abnormally large skull, slanted eye sockets, and a jaw structure that doesn't match any known human form. The skin appears leathery, the bones delicate and thin. Whispers claim it was found in a lesser-known tomb near Saqqara, and quietly transported to the museum without public documentation. Some insiders believe it was labeled as a fetal anomaly to avoid attention. But those who've allegedly examined it argue otherwise. Anatomical features don't line up with fetal proportions. Even the number of vertebrae is said to differ. A few researchers who saw the mummy in person later spoke anonymously, saying it gave off the feeling that it didn't belong, almost like it was added to history, not part of it. The museum refuses to comment. The artifact isn't listed in any public collection, but the photos persist, circulating through UFO researchers and independent archaeologists. If the mummy is authentic and truly ancient, it raises a terrifying question. Were ancient Egyptians simply burying their dead, or preserving visitors from somewhere far beyond the Nile? In 1995, grainy black and white footage appeared that claimed to show the autopsy of an alien being recovered from the infamous 1947 Roswell crash. The body on the table had a large head, swollen abdomen, and long fingers. Surgeons in biohazard suits moved with careful precision, examining its organs under intense lights. The footage shocked the world. Some dismissed it immediately as a staged hoax. Others weren't so sure. The film was said to be retrieved from old military archives by a former cameraman, and for years it was debated by video experts, pathologists, and skeptics. Some found inconsistencies in the frame rate and techniques, but others pointed out anatomical details that would be difficult to fake in the 1990s, especially using only practical effects. Despite the controversy, the Roswell autopsy remains one of the most widely discussed alien videos in history. Was it fake to mislead the public, or was it released as controlled truth, masked in doubt? To this day, no one has definitively proven where the footage came from or how it was made. Whether real or not, it helped reignite interest in the original Roswell crash, and reminded the world that something strange really did fall from the sky in New Mexico. In the heart of Guatemala's ancient Maya site of Quirigua stands a colossal stone carving, Stela F. Towering over 20 feet, it shows a figure with facial features that seem oddly non-human. The eyes are too large, the jawline elongated, and the headdress resembles more of a helmet than ceremonial wear. While most Mayan art is deeply symbolic, this statue looks different. The proportions, the details, it almost feels like a portrait, not a myth. Some archaeologists insist it's a stylized depiction of a ruler or deity. but others, including independent researchers, point to its stark contrast from neighboring stelae. What's even more compelling is that ancient Quirigua has multiple references to sky beings and visitors who taught through sound and light. These weren't vague ideas, they were carved in stone. Could this be a tribute to something or someone that the ancient Maya encountered? A being so unlike them that it had to be memorialized in the hardest material available? The mystery of Quirigua's alien-looking statue remains one of the most unexplained finds in Mesoamerican archaeology. Between 1952 and 1969, the U.S. Air Force ran a now declassified program called Project Blue Book. Its mission: investigate reports of unidentified flying objects. Over 12,000 cases were logged. Most were explained: weather balloons, aircraft, or illusions. But 701 cases remain unsolved. And these weren't vague sightings. Pilots, military personnel, and radar operators reported objects moving at impossible speeds, making right-angle turns and vanishing without a trace. One of the most famous cases involved multiple jet fighters scrambled to intercept a glowing object seen on radar near Washington, D.C. It outran the jets, then disappeared, only to reappear minutes later miles away. These reports were documented, filed, and quietly shelved. Even after the program ended, many involved believed it was only the public face of a much deeper operation. Some of the 701 cases contain reports of craft descending into the ocean, landing briefly on remote terrain, or hovering near nuclear facilities. The files are public now. Anyone can read them, but what they suggest is something that no government has been able to fully explain. We're being watched, and have been for a long time. In 2003, a researcher exploring a ghost town in Chile's Atacama desert discovered something truly bizarre: a tiny mummified skeleton just over 6 inches long. Despite its size, it had a skull that appeared far too large, with an elongated cranium, slanted eye sockets, and hardened bones, features that didn't seem fetal or infant-like. The skeleton, soon nicknamed Ada, had a humanoid structure but raised immediate questions. How could a body this small be so developed? When the remains were brought to medical experts and later analyzed by geneticists at Stanford, the results were even more puzzling. The DNA showed that Ada was human, but with mutations never seen before. She had genes associated with dwarfism, scoliosis, and other skeletal disorders, but the combination was so rare that scientists couldn't say for certain what they were looking at. Some argued it was a deformed stillborn fetus. Others weren't convinced. What truly deepened the mystery was the condition of the bones. They showed signs of being 6 to 8 years old at the time of death, despite the skeleton's tiny size. How could a 6-inch being live for years? No known syndrome explains that. Some believe Ada is evidence of a failed cloning experiment. Others think she's a hybrid, part human, part something else. Even after DNA testing and X-rays, Ada's story remains unsolved. A being too small to exist, yet too real to ignore. In a remote mountain cave on the Chinese-Tibetan border, a 1938 expedition led by Professor Chi Pu-Te discovered something no one expected: hundreds of stone discs buried among ancient graves. Each disc was about a foot across, carved with tiny spiral grooves running from the center to the edge. But these weren't decorative. Inside the grooves were microscopic symbols, too precise to be accidental, yet unlike any known language. The discs became known as the Dropa Stones, named after a local legend of small, star-born people who fell from the skies and couldn't return. According to some reports, when the symbols were analyzed decades later, they told a story of extraterrestrial travelers who crashed in the region thousands of years ago. The surviving members, the Dropa, were said to have lived peacefully with the locals before dying off. Skeptics dismiss the story as a myth. The Chinese government has never officially confirmed the discovery, and most of the original artifacts have reportedly vanished. But a few photos exist, showing the discs and their strange, worn engravings. Some independent researchers claim to have seen them in private collections. If real, the Dropa Stones could be the oldest recorded attempt at alien communication on Earth. Not carved into temples or shouted into the sky, but pressed into rock and buried, waiting for someone to understand, and maybe that someone is just now catching up. In 1996, near the Russian town of Kyshtym in the Ural Mountains, a local woman named Tamara Prosverina claimed to have found a small, weak creature near a cemetery. It was barely alive, wrapped in rags, and unlike anything she had seen. It stood only about 10 inches tall, had a soft domed head, slanted eyes, a tiny mouth, and a strangely fragile body. She called it Alyoshenka. Locals thought it was just a malformed child, until doctors took a look. None of them could explain what it was. Shortly after the discovery, the being died. Its body was reportedly taken by authorities for examination, but that's where things get murky. Eyewitnesses claimed it was brought to a lab in Chelyabinsk, and X-rays were done. What shocked the examiners was the lack of a navel and internal organs that didn't match any known human. Then, the body vanished. Official records? Gone. Scientists who had spoken anonymously suddenly stopped talking. Some locals believe the government took over the case. Photos of the creature still circulate, and multiple witnesses confirm its existence. To this day, no one has explained what Alyoshenka truly was. Some claim radiation from the nearby Mayak facility caused a genetic mutation. Others believe it was something else entirely, an entity not from Earth, lost and found in the wrong place. Whatever the truth is, the Kyshtym dwarf remains one of the strangest and most mysterious alien discoveries in modern Russian history. In the dry sands of Paracas, Peru, archaeologists uncovered one of the most baffling discoveries in ancient history. Over 300 elongated human skulls buried in a massive necropolis. Unlike traditional cranial deformation caused by head binding, many of these skulls showed structural features that couldn't be explained away so easily. They had 25% larger cranial volume, different bone density, and even unusual suture patterns. In short, they weren't just stretched, they were built differently. Some skulls had only one parietal plate instead of the usual two. Others had eye sockets that were larger, and holes in unexpected places. Early theories proposed ritual deformation, but forensic experts quickly pointed out that the changes weren't just cosmetic, they were anatomical. DNA tests on several samples revealed something even more strange: mitochondrial DNA that didn't match any known human lineage. Some samples showed mutations never before seen in human history. Who were these people? Were they an isolated genetic group, a lost civilization, or something else? The region itself is famous for the Nazca lines, massive ground drawings only visible from above. Could the skulls and the geoglyphs be connected? Some believe the people of Paracas had direct contact with beings from beyond Earth, or perhaps were descended from them. That's about it. Do you believe in aliens now? Write in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.